Hi everyone, I'm going to show a quick tutorial today to show how to make the Faux Carnival glass technique, which I used to make these pendants that are shown on one of my art project videos, and a couple of people have said that they would like a tutorial on them. So these are the three that I think were on the video, and I'll just very quickly go through the supplies you're going to need for this. You need firstly some Ranger memory frames and the memory glass to go inside them. You need a Versamark stamp pad or a clear embossing pad, and you need some fantasy film. This one's by Art Institute, and it comes in a variety of colours, so I've just got a few to show you there. You also need some clear embossing enamel, and this is the Opals brand, but you can use the Ranger one or any other brand. It's got to be the ultra thick though. And you also need some coloured ultra thick embossing enamel as well. Okay, so to get started, you take your piece of memory glass and you ink it up with your Versamark, making sure you're putting plenty of the ink on there. Then you take your coloured embossing enamel. In this case, the one I'm going to use is Sandstone, which is Opal's embossing powder, and you want to get a good coverage of the powder, and then you want to heat this up. Now, the best heat tool for this is one of the Ranger hairdryer type ones, because the other type, which I have one here, these longer types here, they tend to have too much blowing on them. The power's too high and they blow the embossing powder away. Also, these ones are a lot quieter, and it does take a few minutes to do this. And what you want to do is you need about 3 coats of your coloured powder for this. I'm not going to make you watch through 3 coats. I'm just going to do this one, and then I've prepared one for you to look at. And what I tend to do, I've got the little tray here with my embossing powder in, so it's ready just to put the piece of glass in as soon as it's done, because it does tend to dry very quickly as well. I suppose the other way you could do it is just let it dry and then put some more Versamark on the top, because the glass does tend to get very, very hot, so you really need to mind your fingers on this. So, done one layer like that, and then, as I say, you need to tip that into your powder. You get a second coat, heat that, and then do a third coat. There's one here, I've done a different colour on this one. This is Dove Lake. So you take this, and I'm going to reheat it again now just to make sure that it's nice and hot. And whilst I'm reheating it, I'll just explain what you do with the fantasy film. The fantasy film, which comes in the rolls like this, you need to take a piece that's slightly bigger than your piece of glass, and you scrunch it up to begin with, and it creates these lovely wrinkles, okay, which catches the light. That's the whole point of doing the wrinkles. And then when your third layer of embossing enamel is hot enough, then you need to lay that down onto there and just sort of scrunch it on. Again, be careful because it is really hot, it's glass under there. Then the next stage is to add some of the clear embossing enamel, and I tend to just sprinkle it over, and I do tend to go a little bit over the edges of the glass, but only just, and it sort of helps the fantasy film stay down, because it does tend to curl a little bit when you heat it. You can see it curling at the edges there, so you just need to keep an eye on that, and if need be, get some tweezers or move your heat gun a little bit higher. And you just wait until all the powder's melted. Then you need to repeat that with another at least 2 layers, possibly 3. So a fair bit on there. And again reheat. And I'm hoping I'm going to have time to get through this. And third layer. Basically what you're doing here is you're creating a surface thick enough to stamp into. The other thing you need to do is have a stamp inked up in an ink that's going to be permanent. So I tend to use Brilliance for this because it's a really strong ink, really strong colour, black. But you can use just some Versamark if you want just an imprint rather than colour on there. And it does need to be a bold stamp as well with lots of open areas. So fine detailed stamps are not going to work for this technique. So I'm going to make this the final layer now. If I wasn't against the time, I might even put another coat on there. So whilst that's still hot, you take your stamp. This is the Tim Holtz Bingo stamp from the game set, and I've put the ink on there already. As I say, I've used the Brilliance, and whilst it's hot, you're going to plunge your stamp into there and press quite hard. And then what you need to do really is just leave it for a couple of minutes to cool down. I find that if you pull it up too soon and the embossing enamel's still really hot, which it tends to stay hot a lot longer because it's on glass, then it lifts up the fantasy film as well. But when you pull it off, you'll end up with something like this. So this is one I did earlier, and the colour I used for this one, I used the bubble gum. Oh, it's the mother of pearl colour as well, the fantasy film that I used for these. So what you then need to do is to take your scissors and you need to trim the excess. And what I tend to do is turn it over and sort of break where the embossing enamel has gone over the edges. You have to be really careful not to cut the glass, so if you tilt your scissors slightly, sort of angling them, I know that's a big exaggeration, but only angling them slightly away from the glass, you're less likely to cut your glass. So it's hard to tell whether you're cutting through glass or it's actually the ultra thick you're cutting through, because the glass is very fragile. And then once you've done it, it doesn't really matter how neat and tidy it is at this stage, because you're then going to take one of the little memory frames, and once it's inside the frame it just neatens up all those edges. And that is about it. You just thread it onto your jewellery cord. So once it's in there, thread it onto your jewellery cord, and it's got this lovely sparkly finish. So I hope you try it out, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Please leave me a comment if you've got any questions. Okay, bye.